That should work. Alright guys, if you're in for this chat, let's move in nice and close so it doesn't go too much. Most of you probably read most of through this already, so I'm going to try and summarize everything pretty quickly, and I'll take some questions at the end if you need to. So first thing, is there anyone, I know Crystal's done the zone before, anyone else done it or looked at it at all before? Lainey, yeah, cool. So essentially the reason why I chose the zone diet of all things to work on this 8-week challenge that we're going to do is because it kind of loosely fits in with, I guess, my ideal of what eating should be. So yeah, most of you probably know as well, there's 3 macronutrients: your protein, carbs and fats. This diet allows you to eat all of them in moderation or within that realm. So we're not trying to cut out protein, or we're not trying to cut out fat, we're not trying to cut out carbs, so we're allowed to have all those things. So the idea behind it, and if you read through it a little bit, is the idea that because we're having those things in the right amounts, that our hormones and things are in the right patterns, in the right check, so that our bodies are functioning correctly. So that's why I like the idea of the zone diet over other restrictive type things. Now, the other thing I wanted to say as well before we go into too much depth is that the idea behind the zone diet is that you're not starving yourself. So the thing I hate the most about a lot of challenges that you'll do or see is that you severely restrict the amount of food that you eat to try and lose weight really quickly. But the thing they don't tell you is that 90% of these like really restrictive type diets fail. So you'll gain that weight back on within a few months or add more body weight to it. So hopefully this is more to give you a bit of a kickstart into eating healthier and that sort of thing. So we'll go into that in a sec. So there's a heap more information on this sheet, so you can go into it and have a little bit of read about the zone diet. But I just wanted to go into what it actually is and how it actually works. So it is a little bit of mumbo jumbo if you haven't kind of looked into it before, maybe looking at it from the outside in. So basically what happens in the zone diet is we measure our food into block proportions. So blocks of protein, fat and carbohydrates. So if you do go through into the back of the resource that I've given you guys, it'll show you protein. For example, let's all turn to the protein page, which is the first table that is in the back of this, if I can get there. And it essentially shows you what one block of protein is. I'll explain what a block is and what we're going to do with those in a second. But if you've got in your best choices there, the first thing you'll see on that list is beef. So one block of protein of beef is 28 grams of uncooked meat. And you'll see a bunch of different ones, and you'll see there's fair choices, poor choices, and a few different things as well. And there's the carbohydrates and the fats. If you turn back 1 page or 2 pages, you'll see a bit of a table that is related to the zone diet. Now, the important thing with this, guys, is it is an absolute guide. It is not the gospel. This is not what you're forced to have to eat. I know Crystal said when she did it originally, she started on probably small female, I'd say she is, but it's probably maybe not enough food because she's training 5 times a week pretty hard, doing a little bit of extra training, so she had to bump up what she was eating. So the idea with this table is to set a point to start with and get into the rhythm of eating about that much food and then being able to change it as you go. So it's not that you have to be stuck doing one thing or the other. It's more to start getting an idea of how much food your body actually needs to have and adjusting that. And while this is going to be a little bit of a effort in the first couple of weeks, especially kind of weighing and measuring things, there's no other way to possibly understand how much your body needs unless you do this. You'll see people who have been in the health and fitness world for a long time, they don't weigh their foods, but they still stay in good shape. It's because they started at this point at some stage. They started figuring out, this is how much I need to eat, and then they kind of can just see that food and go, yeah, that's about right for me. But it has to start somewhere, and this is kind of where I think is a good point for you guys to go from. So let's say I pick, for me, extra large male. I've got 20 blocks to eat in my day, and that means I need 20 blocks of protein, 20 blocks of carbohydrate, and 20 blocks of fat. Now they've made it out pretty straightforward. You've got 5 4-block meals to consume in the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way as long as you eat the meals in ratio. So you can't have 10 blocks of carbohydrate for breakfast, no protein and fat. You've lost that macronutrient balance, the whole idea of what we're doing. So you need to try and make sure that every meal is as balanced as you possibly can. So let's, for example, and this will be a very horrible meal to eat, but it's just a quick example. Say for my dinner tonight, I was gonna have my 4 blocks of meat, and I'm gonna choose that first one on the list. I've got the beef. I'd multiply out 28 by 4. That's the amount of meat that I'd have, or my protein source for the dinner. Then you can go into your carbohydrate, and there's an endless list here. And I think the really important part about this diet, guys, is trying to choose most of your food choices in the carbohydrates from that first page, the low density carbohydrate choices. The reason for this is these things are what make you feel full. If you choose all your carbohydrate sources from the next page along, which is your higher ones with things like rice, potato and stuff, you have more carbohydrate in that stuff, but you get less of it, so you feel less full, and it's more chance you'll overeat on those things. So going back to my 4-block meal, this is definitely not what I would do, but like let's have a look at, I like broccoli. 1 block of carbohydrated broccoli is 3 cups of broccoli. That's a shit ton of broccoli, yeah? I wouldn't do that, but it shows you that how much I can fit on my plate to fit into this, and I'm gonna feel full. I'm not gonna be like, I just ate half a cup of rice and that was all my blocks done for the day. I can have a cup of broccoli, a cup of whatever else on this, zucchini and stuff like that. And I've got a fairly large meal with a really high macronutrient value and all those other nutrients. So your vitamins and minerals that you get from your vegetables as well. Not saying that you can't have things from those higher density carbohydrates or fats and things, but it's important to make sure that you allow for that in your daily intake. So don't go and obviously try and it's sometimes easier if you have rice at every meal, but you've got to understand you'll have less of it. You maybe feel less full by the time you get to dinner, and that's not always a good thing, as we would know. So same thing, if you keep turning on, there's the fat block equivalents on that second to last page. This is where it gets interesting, guys. Fat is a very important part of your meal and diet. It has things that you can't get from anywhere else, but it also needs to be known that they're very high in calories. So you'll notice a block of the fat sources isn't very much for things like peanuts, unfortunately, Mel. 6 peanuts is a block of fat. So it's really important that, your handful of nuts is probably your daily fat or more in that one sitting. So you've just got to be careful and sparing in that. While it is important, like I said, you have to make sure you're not having too much of those things. So basically that's the idea of this, guys. You sit down, you're going to plan out what you're going to do. There's examples of how you might break up your day. If you're someone who likes to eat regularly, you might divide your blocks over 3, 4, 5 meals. If you just eat 3 meals a day, you divide it out of your 3 meals. But I think the biggest challenge with this is being organized, guys. And that's why I've kind of given everyone until the Monday after to kind of get their head around it, ask me questions, probably go and get a scale, little scales you can probably buy for $5 or $10 on eBay. I know that's where I got mine. Some cup measurements and stuff, trying to get your head around what I need for my shopping. I know a lot of you guys have busy lives, but the easiest thing I find, and Andy finds, is doing your weekly shopping one day. So you plan out what you're going to have. That way it's there. That way when you go to Woolworths, when you're hungry after training, you don't grab the chocolate bars and the things on the way through and have them sitting around. On the chocolate bar thing though, I think it's really important to note that because I want this to be like a lifestyle change, that it's important that you're allowed to have those things in your life still. You're never ever going to be successful in eating if you can't have a beer every now and then, or a wine, or whatever it is that you like doing. It's more about trying to consider the moderation of that and where it fits into your weekly meal plan as such. you know, I think if you work off, you know, 6 days a week, you're doing something like this, and the other day you have a little bit of what you want, you're going to be pretty successful. I know, you know, Andy and I have a bit of a splurge on the weekend, but we eat really well during the week, or as well as we can. And, you know, it keeps us pretty sane, and, you know, we're pretty sort of happy with the points we're at with our eating. So